Recently, I had a very good time playing Wrath of Ashardalon, which is the second game in the Dungeons and Dragons board game series. And because of that, I also wanted to try the other game in the series, which is Castle Ravenloft, which actually is the first installment in the series. Also, some 20 years ago, I read a Choose Your Adventure book, which was about Castle Ravenloft. How neat is that? So I had even more reasons for wanting to play this game. In this review, I'm not going to tell you about the general system of the game, in other words, about how to play the game, because the game is very similar to Wrath of Ashardalon. If you know how to play one of the two games, you know how to play the other one, and I already described the general system in my review for Wrath of Ashardalon, so if you want to learn about that, you can watch that review. In this video, I'm going to tell you more specifically about the heroes, the monsters, the treasures, the challenges that you have in Castle Ravenloft, which means I'll be able to tell you more specifically about how the game plays. The rulebook is 14 pages. It is full of illustrations. Ooh, some are scary. Don't show your kids. Yeah, there are a lot of illustrations, as you can see. Not much text, but the text that there is very clear. It's very well structured. It tells you all that you need to know. No problem whatsoever. The rules are basically the same ones that you find in Wrath of Ashardalon. I didn't see any significant change between the rules that are used in the two games. So if you like Ashardalon or Ravenloft, I think you're going to like the other one. If you don't like one of them, I don't think there are many chances that you're going to like the other one. The game comes with 5 heroes to choose from, and these heroes create the typical assortment of heroes, the typical team you would expect from a game like this. You have the wizard, who's not that great in combat, but has good spells, and these spells often are ranged spells, so he can attack from afar. You have the rogue, who is agile, good at disabling traps. You have the heavy hitter, of course you always need a warrior, the tank basically, and this is a dragonborn fighter, has a fantastic armor class, the highest number of hit points that a hero can have in the game. It's just good. You send him against monsters and he flattens them. But then you have 2 characters that may not look as great at first as, let's say, this guy does, but when they're used with some finesse, can be incredibly powerful. One is the Cleric, and this Cleric has very interesting healing skills. A player that knows how to use those skills well can really help the group a lot. I have a friend who just knows how to play the Cleric well, and when he plays the Cleric, we are fine. We know that we're not gonna die that easily. But then you have also Alyssa the Human Ranger, but she should be called Alyssa the Power Ranger because she's very good. Sure, she has some limitations. Her armor class is not that great. It's not horrible, but not that great. She has only 4 power cards. She's the only character that only has 4, but she has some incredible things. The first one is that during her exploration phase, she can explore one unexplored edge on her tile, even if she's not adjacent to it. She must have some sort of telescope or something, which is, if you know the game, you know how good this can be, because it does allow you to manipulate the sequence of events, even though you may be somewhere else on the tile and you have been doing something. Rather than exploring, then you can flip a new tile instead of having an encounter, and there are cases in which this can be crucial. But then another fantastic thing is that one of her skills is this one, Careful Attack. One adjacent monster takes 1 damage. It's that simple. 1 automatic hit, and it is an at-will power, so she can inflict 1 hit automatically every turn. At least it has to be adjacent. I say at least because if she also could this in a ranged way, then, well, she would be even too powerful. But this is already pretty good, because as you can imagine, and maybe you know from Ashardalon, most of the monsters in the game only have 1 hit point, so she can basically kill most monsters in the game automatically just by saying, oh, I'm adjacent, boom, you're dead. And again, very good, very powerful thing. Overall, I think that this is a powerful selection of characters. I would say that my impression, and also the impression of the people I play this game with, is that they are more powerful than the heroes that you find in Wrath of Ashardalon. But of course, you cannot have a good adventure without good enemies, good monsters to kill. And monsters in this game are represented by nice and highly detailed figurines that are really fun to play with. Here I'm showing you some of the least challenging monsters in the game. This thing here that looks like a plate of sausages in reality is a bunch of rats, not the scariest thing that is going to be in the dungeon. And this other guy here is a kobold skirmisher who is going to throw a spear at you. Ooh. Actually, with that spear, he can still do some damage, but I think that where he's going to hurt you the most is in your pride, because I personally think that being hit by a kobold is just one of the most embarrassing things that can happen to a person. Then you have some heavy hitters who, however, also have some limitations. For example, the gargoyle can inflict a lot of damage if he hits you, but on the bright side will not run after you. If you're not in his range, will just sit there and pretend to be a statue, and of course that can be a great advantage. And then you have the ghoul, who also can inflict a lot of damage, however he only has 1 hit point, so he's really not that hard to kill. Then, given the theme of the game, you have a high number of undead monsters. You have, for example, the zombie, who is not particularly powerful by himself, but draws power from being together with other monsters. You have the skeleton, the regular skeleton, just your regular monster, moves against you, attacks you, nothing to report about him. Much more interesting than the regular skeleton is his cousin, the blazing skeleton. Look at him. Basically, this is a skeleton on fire, and he will throw balls of fire at you. But the most interesting undead monster is definitely the wraith, that not only is powerful during combat, in regular combat, but also has the power of inflicting damage to every hero on his tile when he dies. He just explodes and everybody gets damaged. So he presents interesting tactical challenges to the heroes, because the heroes are going to try not just to kill him, but also to kill him in such a way that they themselves don't get hurt in the process. And then you have the main villain of the story, Count Strahd von Zarovich. I think it is remarkable that even in the world of Dungeons & Dragons, vampires still have Eastern European last names, but whatever. This vampire is going to be very hard to beat. It's going to take you a while, and probably most of the times you're going to die while trying to do so, but it is going to be fun to try. He has a lot of different attacks. He can throw balls of fire to you, he can bite the heroes, and by doing so he can recover some of the damage that he received earlier, so it's going to be just so hard to kill him. If he receives enough damage, he can transform into a cloud of mist and he floats away, very sneaky. If he receives enough damage, he summons other monsters. It's just gonna be a huge adventure, and he's a one-man show, a one-man band, really. Again, don't expect to beat him too often, but it is really gonna be an interesting challenge to try to do so. Certain enemies can inflict temporary conditions on your heroes. For example, a hero can be slowed and the speed of the hero is reduced to 2, or a hero can be immobilized so that hero cannot move. These conditions that limit movement are okay, there is nothing wrong about them. I just find that they do not present a great challenge to the characters or to the players. If a character has ranged attacks, then the character can still attack even if slowed or immobilized. If you are a Lisa the Power Ranger, you can even explode while you're immobilized. It is just that after playing Wrath of Ashardalon, I find that the conditions that you have there are much more interesting. For example, in Wrath of Ashardalon, a character can be poisoned, and that drains hit points, and that can go on for several turns to the point that that can kill the hero. I just find that those conditions are more challenging and therefore more intriguing. Nothing wrong with these ones, just not as fun to play. Your characters enter the dungeon and fight against monsters for glory and for the greater good, of course, but gaining treasures in the process is not bad. In this game, treasures include a lot of blessings and fortunes. These blessings and fortunes are good, but they're one-time advantages that once they are enter game, they're used and they're discarded, they go away, they don't stay there. You don't have as many items that you attach to your hero and stay there and make the hero stronger, like you have, for example, in Wrath of Ashardalon. And I find that this, what works well in terms of gameplay, limits a little bit the role-playing element of the game. The game feels a little more abstract because in Wrath of Ashardalon, you really had the sense that your character is improving and progressing. Even when the character is not leveling up, now gains a sword and then another weapon, attacks better, now gets a piece of armor, becomes better at defending. You just see the character growing. Here, you do not have that sense. So there's nothing wrong about fortunes and blessings. They just make the game, I feel, a little more abstract. It happens sometimes that the first game of a series comes out, it is successful, but then while the developers are working on the second one, they can take into account the feedback from the previous game, they have more time to develop more ideas, and the second game comes out with more ideas, with a richer, stronger identity, so that game feels like it is the real game, and the first game seems like it is an expansion. It happened with Tomb and Cryptmaster. Cryptmaster is the second game, but it feels like that is the real one, and you use regular Tomb as an expansion to add monsters and heroes to Cryptmaster, and to me this is what happened here, where Wrath of Ashardalon just feels it is a richer, more engaging game, and Castle Ravenloft mainly an expansion that you use to add stuff to Wrath of Ashardalon. Now, Castle Ravenloft is perfectly good per se, don't get me wrong, it's only by comparison that feels a little bit less. The monsters feel a little less exciting, the heroes feel a little easier to play, that to me means less challenging, the treasures have a little less role-playing value, the conditions are a little less challenging, which again to me is a little bit of a negative. But again, it is only by comparison. And if in your family everybody is 10 feet tall and you are 9 feet tall, yes, you are the shortest person in the family. It does not mean you're short. This is more or less what happens here. This game is a little less than Ashardalon, but it is still much more than many other games out there. Also, playing this game, my group and I found it is a little easier than Wrath of Ashardalon. Maybe it is because we're experienced players now, but we really had the sense that we were able to win more scenarios without breaking a sweat than we did in Wrath of Ashardalon. Sure, we still had many scenarios where we got destroyed in the first couple of turns. Sure, you can customize your experience and make the game as hard as you want, but this is just our experience that I'm sharing here. Overall, again, I think this is a very good game. You can have a great time playing it, but if you never played any of the two games, I would suggest to start from Wrath of Ashardalon and then to add this one at some point, to add more monsters, heroes, treasures, things like that. If you play Castle Ravenloft already and you felt like, oh, this is a good game, but I don't know, something is missing, well, what is missing is in the other game. So get Wrath of Ashardalon, put them together, and you are going to have a great experience.